early spring is the time to prune a lot of our woody ornamental plants, and we're going to do quite a bit of pruning today. But before we get started, I want to talk about the different equipment that we use to prune. There's about 3 or 4 different types of equipment. There's the loppers, which are for larger pieces of wood, hand pruners, and the saw. The hand pruners you can use for stems that are up to about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. For larger types of stems and branches, you want to use a loppers. This particular type can handle stems up to about 2 inches in diameter. And when the stems that you're cutting are larger than that, you'll need to use a hand saw. Now for pruners and loppers, there's 2 different types of blade. There's the anvil blade, and this one, the top blade comes and strikes the bottom blade. You can see that as I open and close. And this type of blade is good for pruning dead material out of your bush or tree. And it's not good for cutting live material because the branch essentially gets smashed. And what happens is when you go to move it, you're going to tear the branch. When you have live material, you want to use what's called a bypass pruner. And this one you can see that the cutting blade passes by the other blade as it cuts. You see that as I open and close, kind of like a scissors. And so when you have live material, it makes a nice clean cut and cuts all the way through the branch. Hand pruners also come in similar blades, the anvil type for dry wood and the bypass type for live wood. So now that we've looked at our equipment, let's go ahead and get some pruning done. This is the red osier dogwood, Cornice sericea, also sometimes called Cornice stolonifera. Other common names are American dogwood or red twig dogwood, named for the beautiful red stems that it produces, the coloration in winter. This is a native shrub throughout much of North America. We're kind of at its southern limit here. You'll find it more commonly in the eastern part of Oklahoma. And it's also a wonderful wildlife habit. Now we're going to prune this dogwood. As I mentioned, one of its ornamental features is the red twigs, but as the stems get older, they don't color up as much. Here's an older stem. It's rather brown versus a nice young red stem. So one of the things when we prune it is to try to remove some of these older stems and encourage the nice colorful growth. Some of the dogwoods also have variegated leaves, which are very attractive. I'm going to start by removing, there's some damaged stems here. This one's been broken. And since it's older, I'm going to go ahead and cut it back to the base. You want to cut it about an inch or so above ground level. This crown's pretty dense, so it's hard to get back down that far. There's also a bit of dead material in here that needs to be removed. Now, when we prune dogwood, our general goal is to remove about 1/3 of the stems each year over a period of 3 years. And when we're doing that, we're going to target these older, woodier looking stems and leave the younger, colorful tissue on. I'm going to pull some of this material out. So each year, just identify the oldest stems to cut out, and you could kind of eyeball it and estimate what 1/3 of the material would be. After you've done that for 3 years, you'll need to give your plant a little bit of a rest to rejuvenate, and then you'll need to start pruning again after probably about 2 years. You'll be able to tell because the coloration will start to get dull again. Now, some gardeners prefer to use a renewal pruning technique in which you just cut the entire plant back to about an inch or two above ground level. Dogwoods can handle that type of pruning because they have sort of a suckering habit and they regenerate rather quickly. But you'll leave a rather empty spot in your garden for quite a while. You can prune dogwoods just about any time of the year. It's easiest, however, when there's no leaves on the plant, so you can see the stems a lot better. You could come back, if it seems too dense in the summer, you could come back and thin out some of the smaller shoots. But as you can see, we've taken out all that older material, but the overall form of the plant is still pretty much the same. Now this one is the yellow twig dogwood, closely related to the red osier dogwood. And you would prune this in exactly the same way. You can see very clearly the nice bright yellow young stems and these older stems which are dark and brown. So you would just go ahead and cut out those older stems each year and encourage new yellow growth.